Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Let's hope that technology stays with me today. Welcome and thank you for inviting Microsoft and myself to talk to you guys today. I'm going to talk a little bit about artificial intelligence in terms of where we are and what the opportunities are. Some of these things you will look at and saying, my God, this is futuristic. The good news is it's not. All of the examples that I show you are either in production or have been already proven in production with various scenarios. And I want to get your imagination run wild with the things you could do with these kind of capabilities. I appreciate my previous speaker, robotic automation. That's clearly a very important part. I'm not going to spend time on that. But it's really amazing to see what AI is able to do today. And one of the things that is frightening, even to a technologist like me, is that AI keeps changing faster than we can keep up. So if you're making decisions as an executive, you have to revisit those decisions every 6 to 12 months to effectively make sure that you're not losing track of where AI is already, because it's moving that fast. From our perspective, AI is all about helping you with your businesses to transform into whatever you need to be or you ever want to be. My previous speaker talked about the digital natives being the competitors that you think about. And AI is going to make the digital natives even stronger than they are today. And part of what you need to think about and partnering with KPMG, Microsoft, and others is to say, how do I become as digitally native as possible, ideally combining my existing strength with new strength that I don't have today. And I want to start with humanity efforts. Again, some of this you will see and saying, my God, these Microsoft people are always pushing on my ducts and of sharing with me what AI can do in humanity. We're doing this because A, we believe that helping people that are not quite as capable as we are with respect to the normal communication norms that we expect is important. But I think these examples show you what AI is capable of today. These are all examples that are shipping and certainly something that we are very proud of working with. So let's roll the video. And again, if anybody needs to cry, I always do. Feel free.
We have so many people who are non-verbal, but still have so much to say.
I want the exact same information that my hearing friends have.
There are barriers to communication everywhere, but I think it's time we look at the barriers as opportunities to reach out to everyone.
Soundscape fills in a lot of the mental map as you move.
Approaching intersection.
You can just put it in your pocket and go.
With ALS, you become locked in. But we see technology as a way to give back what ALS has taken away.
There's no better feeling than to hear a child say something that they've wanted to say and the look on their face after they've been able to say it.
When it's reading, I see spaces between the words, and it's easy to focus on.
Ajay realized that here was something that could change his life.
Now that I have my phone, I can see exactly what was said, and that's been a huge help to me.
The system is learning as it goes, and the accuracy has improved tremendously.
Students can pick any language that they choose to receive the information. It's like we jumped into the future.
Because communication is very important for all of us, and we just want to be together and not feel left out.
Aider les personnes avec autisme à communiquer, il y a des images.
Je parle, je donne une information à Arthur et elle est traduite par l'application El Picto instantanément en pictogramme et après d'une façon orale.
Va t'habiller et te brosser les dents.
On va pouvoir remettre en place une communication qui est plus spontanée. Je crois que ça aide à recréer du lien.
Both my wife and I are totally blind, and we have a 3-year-old son that's in preschool. He can see, but his parents can't. So to be able to know what's going on at his school is everything. The Seeing AI app has the ability to allow me access to the visual world. Artificial intelligence is beginning to have an impact on the lives of people with disabilities, but it's only going to grow. There is still so much out there to be done.
So as I said, it's always a moving thing to see how we are dealing with these disabilities and really using AI to bring them forward. Just to give you an idea where we are, AI has now achieved human vision parity, speech parity, translation parity, and reading parity. The computer can actually hear better, understand more, and see more than you can. Most of us effectively are able to deal with around 80% of the information, 90% of the information that we hear. The computers are getting better to a point where they actually are capable of dealing with the human capabilities that we are very capable of delivering every day as much as we can. We saw examples for translation. We saw examples for scanning images and translating them in different forms. We saw language being translated into pictures and so forth. So from that perspective, you can imagine what's possible in your world. I should have set this up, but I'm too lazy. But I could have actually set up a speech translation here from speech to text in 15 different languages simultaneously. And you will be able to now do this not only with text, speech to text, but also speech to speech. The days of the translators sitting in their little offices and speaking are going to be over very soon because the system is able in real time to translate my speech into 15 different languages. And not just English to normal, let's say German, Chinese, or Spanish. It's also capable of doing this for domain-specific languages. So if you were at a medical conference or if you were at a computer science conference, we use a lot of terms that have nothing to do with normal English. And therefore, the systems are now capable of learning how to deal with even those specializations. So if you think AI isn't ready for your business, think again. It is doable, and it's certainly something to be discovered and explored to your capabilities in terms of what you're trying to achieve. Why is this happening? It's happening because of three things. First of all, it's all about data. I'll talk a little bit about what amount of data humanity is collecting. We can argue how much of that data is really valuable because a lot of this is on Twitter and Facebook and other social media, but it is a lot of data that's effectively powering this revolution. Cloud computing is something that is the other element of how this is working. You cannot have AI without a ginormous amount of compute power, and not only a lot of compute power, but more importantly, something that's specialized every day. And then algorithms. The invention of the deep neural networks or deep learning algorithms, and now the invention of reinforced learning, make a lot of what we have seen possible. Because the computers not only have capabilities to shortcut through certain amounts of data, it's also able to use its own learning to get better at what they're doing. As you saw in the movie where one of the deaf people were effectively talking, and the system was learning to get better over time, given the special behaviors of either speakers or listeners with respect to their behaviors. Let's talk a little bit about this great compute scenario. And I have another video for you that gives you another picture of how we are using the cloud to solve some really hard problems.
What happens? What if technology gave us the power to turn this enemy into an ally?
Mosquitoes are the ultimate field biologists, taking blood samples from every animal they bite. Microsoft and its partners are using smart traps to capture mosquitoes and study the DNA they collect. Using the Microsoft Cloud, we can analyze over 100 million pieces of DNA in every sample, so we can identify where diseases come from and how they spread. With the cloud, what used to take 30 days now takes 12 hours, and every second counts. If we can detect new viruses before they spread, we may someday prevent outbreaks before they begin.
We must be passionate, we must be bold, and never stop striving in our desire to make an impact.
So as you can see, 30 days to 12 hours, and that's just the beginning. We will be able to get this down even further and calculate complex algorithms like DNL calculations much, much faster. One of the things that strikes me as really funny in an odd kind of way, I don't know if you remember Tom Watson, as the CEO of IBM in 1943, made a very important sentence. Remember, those computers at those days were as large as a house and very inefficient. He made a statement where he said, you know what? There are going to be 5 computers in this world, or maybe it's the need for 5 computers in this world. He actually was right. What's happening right now is that the cloud computing is effectively specializing to a point where the capabilities that we are offering as either Azure, Microsoft, or AWS or Google are effectively so specialized that you effectively cannot afford it to run it in your data centers. One of them is effectively silicon that speeds up the processing of these neural networks that I talked about before, to a point where you effectively will be able to run tens of thousands of iterations rather than hundreds of iterations on normal CPUs. And doing that at scale is not something that you will be able to do on-prem in your data centers, because it's really hard to afford it to effectively drive it from there. And obviously, there's a lot of innovation going on. Here's just some names. I'm not going to go through them, obviously, but think about how you can use those capabilities in your cloud of choice, ideally, of course, Microsoft Azure, but we understand that there are some other people around that do this cloud thing. But certainly think about it as part of a push that you should think about driving from there. Just to give you an example out of our own business, our Bing friends, the search engine that moved from machine learning algorithms to deep neural networks, they also moved from GPUs to the FPGA capabilities that we're using, was able to get a factor of 1,000 in terms of performance out of it, and a fraction of the cost, because the FPGAs are way, way cheaper and more efficient at certain types of algorithms than our friends, the GPUs. So the other piece that AI needs is a lot and great data. Just to give you an idea where we are with respect to the data collection that we're doing as a human race, we're now up to 33 zettabytes. And by 2025, we think we will collect 175 zettabytes. One of the key questions that we are asking ourselves as cloud providers, where a lot of this stuff is stored, just to give an idea, roughly, I would put an exabyte of storage into production every month. An exabyte every month across the globe. That's what I'm doing right now, but it's not going to be enough to store 175 zettabytes. It's not feasible. So one of the things we're doing is partnering with people like the University of Washington to explore alternative ways to store stuff. One of them is DNA. It's actually really interesting that from an encoding perspective, you can now use the DNA molecules to store data persistently and read it as fast as you can do it from a tape or disk that we do today. Again, this is not production-ready technology, but it's an area where we, as cloud providers, are innovating in order to manage that amount of data that we're collecting and that we want to use. Because AI, as we said, is only as good as the data you can get it. And in order to make this really possible to use as much as possible, we have to be able to store this stuff. So cloud, from a computing perspective, but also from a storage perspective, is critical in order to make this work and really empower the next generation of AI that we're driving today. The other piece that we should think about is effectively looking at other elements of how we think about this. So this is Station B at Princeton. It's a research effort where they are looking at biology. So one of the things they're actually doing is using biology programming, really thinking through how human beings effectively work and translating that in programming languages so that you can start to think about how to build biology-oriented systems. So if you're in pharma or if you're in life science, for example, this effort might be really interesting to you. I'm actually working with a bunch of pharma companies in Europe where this capability is really important for them. And then the big question is, we do need great data, but how much do you really need? Good news is there are also some improvements, for example, in this example with bridge maintenance, where object-powered recognition, AI-powered object recognition, effectively is focused on a number of simple detections. So if you're in the building business or if you have power lines to maintain, we now have drone technology that is able to understand these kind of damages and is trained based upon about 1,000 examples of pictures that it can see. Because the image recognition capabilities are trained already in the cloud, it's now much easier for your domain-specific problems, meaning in this case the bridge damage, to be trained on the already generally capable object recognition model. So think of this as Microsoft, Google, Amazon, and others providing generic models, and you are just training those generic models to do the specific bidding that you're interested in. And that's much, much simpler than building a generic object recognition system, which is really one of the plugs I have for you. I know a lot of my customers, I don't know about you, that have data scientists, and they're very proud of their data scientists, and they should be. But I see a lot of data scientists that want to start at the FIRE level, meaning they want to build language translation, they want to understand object recognition in general. Don't let them do that, because it's a waste of your money and productivity. Really use partnerships with either Microsoft or AWS or Google who have existing capabilities that are very good at object recognition or speech recognition, and specialize the existing capabilities so that they are relevant for your business scenario is hard. And again, visualizing the data here, which are really just generalized object mechanisms. And the system cannot do this only in human visual systems. Like my friend before who talked about RBA, you can actually fully automate this. And again, autonomous drones can fly the bridges up and down, do this automatically, and to a degree automatically send the repair crew out if they detect something that's bad or extremely broken to effectively fix it. The other piece that's interesting, in addition to deep learning, is reinforced learning, as I mentioned before. The most common example I'm sure you have seen is AlphaGo. Our friends at Google built this computer to effectively compete with a human master, and they beat the master, which was unheard of. And by the way, that kicked off the Chinese AI revolution. When Google beat the Chinese master of Go, all of a sudden the state, the government of China, got involved and said, oh my God, this AI stuff is real. We got to go and become an AI superpower. And they are well on their way to become one of those. And Microsoft built a Pac-Man system based upon our research system that does something similar. And again, we're using a combination of deep learning plus reinforced learning to effectively build this intelligence. Now, you're not in the gaming business most likely, so think of this as a system that can help you understand most complex business processes and learn from the repeated execution and become better at executing whatever business process you're trying to automate. And again, this is effectively something that is not very easy, but because of cloud computing, lots of storage, lots of data, we're able to drive this end to end. The other piece that we are very, very focused on is helping the world make sure that AI does good rather than AI does not so good. We don't want to say the word bad, but I'm sure all of you are effectively thinking about utopian things like Terminator, Skynets, and other things when you hear AI. We do too, and we're very, very focused on making sure that we're using AI as a human enhancement capability, not as a human replacement capability. And the other piece is that we're using AI for good as much as possible. And from our perspective, these are the capabilities that you need to think about. What is fair, reliable, private, inclusive? You need to drive transparency and accountability. Before you do anything in your company at AI, you have to have a framework like this in place, because otherwise you might be the one that triggers Skynet, and you don't want to be those guys. And I'm not going to go through all the details, but here is an example from Amazon Prime, where they actually used AI to determine where they deliver same-day delivery or not. And although this is all Western, US capabilities, they actually decided that neighborhoods that were very close to each other were actually excluded from Prime one-day delivery or hour-day delivery. And AI made the decision. I'm not sure that the Amazon guys made it consciously, because it's a business decision. But if you do these kind of things, you might actually get into trouble with somebody who cares about fairness across neighborhoods in this case, and it's certainly an area to think about. Reliability and safety, we have seen this already. How many years and miles do I have to demonstrate to drive autonomous driving forward? What is the model? Privacy and security. this is something that actually really is a use case that happened, where a data scientist at Target was able to determine if a woman was pregnant, although it wasn't announced, based upon 27 products that pregnant women generally buy. And it caused an uproar because, of course, they were targeting all of a sudden women that weren't necessarily publicly pregnant yet, with advertising that was focusing then on them being pregnant. Not necessarily a great strategy. Inclusiveness of this is an example we used where we used LinkedIn, where women, although they have the same qualifications, the same honorary capabilities, are not putting job experiences and other things into their CV, and nobody knows why, but it's certainly skewing the automation processes that people use today to sift through CVs towards men, because females just don't do that. And if you're using AI, it effectively is looking for certain things. If it doesn't find it, it will effectively remove people from the process, although they are equally or maybe even better qualified. Transparency, again, a lot of this is interesting where they actually turned out that if you have asthma, you're actually much more easy. Pneumonia is very, very critical to you, but they effectively figured out that if you are using asthma, there's actually less risk for pneumonia because people go to the ER and get the right care. And so they're looking at this saying, what's transparency in this case? How do I make sure that I don't use things like has asthma equals less risk in a business decision that can bite me later? Accountability, we already talked about this. What does it mean if an autonomous car hits and kills somebody? Who's responsible? Is it us, the driver? Is it you, the provider of the car? Is it the person who coded the algorithm? Unclear at this point in time, but certainly an area to think about. And one of the things we've done is put a lot of this stuff into a book. It's a free ebook. Just go and look for The Future Computed, and you will be able to download it. And the other piece is you need great people and additionally great partnerships. Our partnership is based upon Microsoft Research, for example. Research has been about 30 years in this game of AI and machine learning, and we're certainly partnering with our research capability from an engineering perspective to bring more capability out to the market. And the big question is, after all of these capabilities from seeing AI, hearing AI, translation AI, autonomous driving capabilities, and so forth, what can you do? I didn't talk about quantum computing because that's a little bit further out, but it's certainly an area which is going to trigger even more revolution than what we have seen so far. And again, the key is start to think about AI, start to think about ethics in AI. What is your strategy in this case? We are more than happy to help because we have been spending quite a lot of time and money on this as part of Microsoft. And we would love to partner with you to see what you can do and what you can envision doing with AI. With that, I wish you a wonderful day and days here in Austin. And if there are any questions, certainly work with our partners from KPMG. They're great technology advisors and happy to work with you as well. Thank you very much and have a great day.